Welcome to Stacking Growth Called to Action, a show for the trailblazers, changemakers, and paradigm shifters. Each week, a different marketing hero who is called to make a change in their field will join us to walk through each step of their journey. They'll cover the highs, the lows, and what's coming next. Together, we'll help you find the changes needed for your own business to win. I'm Steph Craniola, here with Evan Hughes, and today we are so excited to welcome Refine Labs lead designer Monica Beesting. Monica's been a force behind Refine Labs' investment in our own brand identity, as well as that of countless customers. As we confront what creative looks like in the AI era, we wanted to sit with some of our creative team to talk with them about how they've adapted to these constant tech changes. And Monica is our first guest in this mini series. Monica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have this conversation. We were, just talking a little bit about how emotionally charged this whole past couple of years, future couple of years must be for y'all. So let's start with the bright sunny days of yon past. What got you into design and specifically marketing? How did you, as an artist and as a creative, choose marketing for a career, or did it choose you like it has for a lot of other marketers?
I think it chose me. I have definitely always known I wanted to go down a more creative path. I tried my hand at some other things before college, like interior design or advertising, things like that. And I wanted the challenge that graphic design was. So that's where I kind of ended up, got my degree. And I think I ended up where I am just because I love solving puzzles, and working in marketing agency gives you the opportunities to do that over and over again. And they're all different puzzles, different challenges. So I like the opportunity to work with a lot of different clients.
I love it. You've seen a lot, I'm sure, too. Kind of the transition. Like, talk me a little bit through too, as your background, how it progressed to like current state, right? And maybe some of those evolutions, or maybe those milestones, and like whether it's a learning curve or tools or adaptation, just to kind of set the tone a little bit about like where you were versus where you are now.
Yeah, I feel like I found my footing pretty early. I started doing a lot of graphic design for museums, and I really thought that that's where I was going to end up. Was doing specifically science museum signage because my favorite animals are dinosaurs, and I just thought that would be a fun job. And then, so all of my internships were in museums, and I don't know, like I worked for my university for the dean of students office. That was probably my first like taste of real marketing materials rather than like internal projects. And yeah, I just stumbled into jobs where that was kind of the norm and where I had opportunities to do multiple things. I always preferred the marketing projects in those agencies as well.
I think this is so fascinating. I didn't know that you started in museums, but looking at where you are now, so much of what you do for Refine Labs internally and client facing is finding a voice for these brands and thinking about museum signs that I've seen. It doesn't sound like something that would like call the attention of a creative because I feel like I've seen a lot of signs that are just like name of dinosaur and like the text about the dinosaur, but like how coming from that, how do you blend that like history informational tone with having a creative like human unique vision behind it? I just want to hear a little more about that.
Yeah, I think my main goal with every design I do is to tell a compelling story. So I think like the museum signage and things like that, it's the challenge of how can I make this the most interesting? How can I frame this so people actually read it? Um, or even like I like learning myself. So that was kind of an added bonus. There was a whole summer where I could identify fish species by just looking at pictures because I had to create like an entire cataloged library of the fish in our aquarium. Yeah, I think I just like taking information that's been given to me and like figuring out the best way to communicate with any audience that might be on the other end.
That's awesome. I love knowing this about you now.
It
If
explains.
you look on the website for the Frost Museum of Science, I chose most of those pictures.
We have to link that after this.
Yep. We'll put that in the show notes. Yeah.
I was an unpaid intern. I don't know if they want me saying that.
The claim to fame here.
Yeah, no, I like manifested that internship entirely. I was like, I want to work in a museum, and my graphic design professor was like, we have an like student that works in the science museum, and I was like, great, can they create an internship for me?
Amazing.
That was
You
fun.
like you made that. That was
And then
that's
the
like
next summer, they posted like a paid internship, and I was like, you're all welcome.
Right. You set the bar high.
that's awesome.
I think you just your ability to kind of translate, in my opinion, something so like dry or a bit maybe mundane and be able to like add that human element is so important. And I think that's where we lose a lot of the importance of some of this creativity or design work. And we're being flooded right now with this whole AI path, right? And everybody's having these conversations about, hey, how AI is integrated into all these roles and these functions. And definitely, I'm sensitive to it when I think about my role as a marketer. And I think especially like creative and design, we think about it too, because we hear all this chatter that's just noise right now. But what was this moment too, as you think about like when you needed to embrace AI? Like you had to really think about your role, your future, your journey, and like, was it driven by the industry? Was it just the flooded tools? Or what motivation kind of lit you up to get started in that?
Yeah, so I would say my first attempt at it was we had a client in 2023 that really let us experiment. And so from a creative perspective, that was really exciting. And I wanted to tell stories that I couldn't just through normal stock photos. So think like giant squid attack under the ocean, submarine diver attacks the squid, and then the third slide of the carousel is like a squid burger. Like those images don't kind of already exist. And so we had like a lot of really interesting scenarios, and that gave me a chance to be able to create unique content that wasn't there before. And then kind of let it simmer until this past like year when it's kind of had a resurgence. Not a resurgence, it's always been there, but there's definitely a lot more conversations happening around it in the last couple years. And about how to integrate that consistently for our clients rather than this one-off client that I just happened to get lucky and get to make some really cool stuff for. So I personally am not really worried about it
Mhm.
taking my job because I'm using it as a tool to make my ideas come to life, but I have to have those ideas first. Like, I don't think that AI has the capability to make that entire carousel storyline, have all of the slides be connected. I think you still need like essentially an art director role, the same way that I might art direct a photo shoot and say, hey, move your hand here, get rid of the twist your watch, this is a little crooked. All of that direction that you're giving during a real life photo shoot is also the same types of direction I'm giving to AI to make a product that's high quality and not just churned out.
Those are some of my favorite creatives, but
They really trusted us to just go for it. I wish I had more data on how those all did, but I had a lot of fun.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and I think it just shows the importance of taking this idea, conceptualizing like such a broad and unique perspective on how to like convey the message to an audience that you can't get that in black and white prompts with AI, right? So you can tell creative things, but that creative prompt's still coming from a human. You're still prompting it based off of your own direction, your own ideas. So it sounds like, if I am interpreting what you're saying, there was more excitement around AI for you to kind of be a tool to push the boundaries and thoughts versus that we're hearing both, right? We're having some people that are more resistant to it and fearful, or some people that are more exciting. And it's interesting to hear your perspective, and it's very valuable, I think, to remind ourselves the prompt is the human.
yeah, and I think There, at least in the art and design community, there are some like ethical dilemmas around AI and it referencing intellectual property, and sometimes very blatantly stealing that.
Mhm.
So I find that the way I use it, I feel like I'm getting a product that only my brain could have come up with rather than saying, make this in the style of this other artist. Like, I think that there is a line that can be drawn. And that line, I think, is your prompts and how you're feeding your requests to AI so that it's not doing more than you want it to. And by more, I mean thinking and stealing.
I love that. And let's dig into some of those tools that you've been using a little bit more. And now we say tools, these can be like AI software platforms, or it can be people who have kind of pointed you in the right direction to help you grow and adapt in this era. So what are some things that have helped you along the way, or is it just time to experiment?
Yeah, so I would say our internal team is a great resource. Honestly, if I'm struggling with something, I will message the other designers and say, has anyone done this? Like, why is that still working like that? Because that's another kind of method of how I'm using the AI is I'm really trying to get it to do specific things or make specific changes. So how do I work with the tool the best? And getting advice from my team has definitely helped. Otherwise, we're using pretty well-known AI tools. We're using Midjourney and ChatGPT. ChatGPT is my personal favorite because, like I said, I want to have like a very controlled hand in art directing that image. And I personally find that ChatGPT is the best to give very specific instructions. So sometimes I'm like, no, move his hand like a little bit, like and it can kind of interpret that feedback a little better than something like Midjourney, where you say move his hand a little bit and it gives you a whole new image that's not at all the first one. I know other members of our team do like to use Midjourney, and I think that's just a difference in approach, which is the beauty of creative and design is uh, some people might be interested in more open-ended prompts, but the way I work, I have a vision in my head of what I want this end image to look like, and I don't want to sit there fighting the robot to make it happen. So like I like one that listens to me a little more.
No, I think that's great. And I love hearing that different members of even our internal team. So
Yeah.
between the six of you, there are so many different perspectives. And some people, the same way that like I edit in Adobe products, like I use Premiere
And I
and
hate
Audition.
Premiere and I use
Yep.
After Effects. Yeah.
So many people hate Premiere, and it's just what I have found works for me. And I still, I say this all the time. Every time I use it, I have to Google, how do you do this in Premiere? It's
You
just a
Google it
tool.
still? You
Yeah,
don't
I
go to
Google it still.
ChatGPT?
No, I still Google it. I'm a creature of habit, but
I
I
I
should.
still Google a lot. The only like there's a couple of search ear things I use ChatGPT for. One is code. Like if I'm trying to
Mm.
pinpoint what I need to change to like make something on WordPress happen, I might paste the backend code and be like, tell me where to put this. And that just saves me a lot of time. But again, you still kind of have to know where to put it, how to get the code. Like you're still facilitating it as a tool. And then I make random names for me a lot. Like whenever I need to make some UI, I just can't be bothered to think of a fake name. So I just say, give me some random names.
Amazing. I love hearing that. And I love hearing that everyone has kind of a preferred tool and it's
Yeah.
going to be different. It's not one single thing kind of taking over. You are still seeing, because I can still see in each of your work your point of view and your voice. So it looks like these ads are coming out of Refine Labs as a brand, but they are uniquely Monica or uniquely someone else who's put the time and design and focus into them. So
Yeah.
you are still retaining your creative perspective while using these tools.
Yeah, and I think it also helps that we're generally, even as a team, using these for image creation and then making the ad itself our own. I think that helps to preserve a little bit more of that perspective, that personal perspective as well, because again, you're curating a piece of an ad. You're not asking it to make the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a
You feel
great
like
point.
that kind of got me thinking. Do you feel like AI, the way you're using it, we're using it at Refine Labs from a creative standpoint, has made it more collaborative as a group, or do you think it's like created more of like an individual play? Like, how do you think it's maybe Refine Labs, but also just how could you see that maybe influencing one way or the other individuals?
I think as a company as a whole, it's been an interesting topic to get people talking. So I've definitely seen more back and forth in those channels, specifically since we've made these efforts to utilize AI more. I think like for the design team, this might not be the answer you want,
Oh, this is
but
great.
we work very like since we all have our own clients, like if we're not like asking for advice or opinions, like we're not really collaborating like that much.
Yeah.
But like I said, like there's definitely just a new topic to converse on for everyone, and I think it definitely has had an increase in like our Slack communications and things like that when somebody finds something cool.
Yeah, I think there's, I feel like that's common in any organization you go into, right? The roles become siloed based off of client work. It's just a natural way we do. But I think that like the tool itself, and from what I'm hearing, is like you're using it so much more as a thought partner or brainstorm partner. So rather than distracting somebody that maybe is a little bit underwater or swamped internally, like you have this to kind of bounce ideas, like how would you do this differently or challenge me on my point of view here. And I think that that's where like as a tool too, like it becomes a very powerful guiding light for us to balance that human slash the AI aspects of decision making and or creativity. Well, so we kind of like how you got talked a little bit about how you got into, the world of marketing and, your kind of point of view on the tools, but thinking about like some of the challenges that come with this too. As things are getting harder, right? There's some more and more pressure to move quicker, to adapt, to learn. How are you keeping that as a motivator to push forward with all of this kind of chatter behind the scenes that AI is taking all of our roles and
Yeah, I think something I've had to adapt to is that like external push to use it. As I mentioned, when I was using it in like 2023, it was because I had a desire, interest, goal for it. I think what I'm learning is that there are ways to use it that are different for everybody. Like we've been saying, like different tools exist because everyone's process is different. They like different things. And to not put too much pressure on myself to do things just because everyone else is. So I know like personally, I rely on AI mostly for that one specific task. I'm not really delving in to seek out how it can like make my workflows more efficient because that is like not the knob I want to turn on my process right now. Not that I'm not open to that in the future, but yeah, right now I want to use it to create, and I think the the pressure to use it, I think the biggest lesson would be not to feel like you need to unless it's serving you.
I love that. I think that's a great answer. And I think that coming from someone in the creative industry, there's a lot of talk about like artistic integrity and like how you protect your voice as an artist and knowing where your specific line is. And that line is going to be different for everyone, not just creatives, but everyone, period. And knowing where your line is and being willing to, as long as you can keep up your efficiency in a team, that's not a piece that's going to kind of come back and take your job. So I think that's a really cool takeaway.
Yeah, there's also another kind of story anecdote I wanted to bring up, which is just everyone's different perspectives as a designer. And like, I know that there are stock photos or stock models that like I personally refuse to use because I see them everywhere. And that doesn't bother other people because I continue to see those stock models everywhere. But there is a stock model that haunts me through my life. I've seen him in the Vienna airport. I've seen him on the back seat of my flight. I've seen him on the Target app. And so, and then I also know that I have seen that same model appear in some things like for a client or things like that. So it's
Mm.
like I have a perspective that I'm like, well, I don't want to use that. Everyone else is doing that. Uh, and that's kind of why I approach AI the way I do is I don't want you referencing other stuff. I want to purposely make something that doesn't look like we all got on Adobe stock and downloaded the same dude.
Let's just
I
picturing this guy following you around the airport.
Devin gets a text every time I see him because he's everywhere. And I swear he's like, I mean, like, I'm trying to phrase this in a way that's not like we use him for our clients, but some of the people do. And and I think oh, Chris covered for me while I was out and he used one of the stock models. I'm like, I refuse to use her. And
oh
I
my
have to
gosh.
just like suck it up because I know that that is just like me and my personal like idiosyncrasy or like preference is I'm always striving to make something that's different than what exists.
Has there been a point for you that it has kind of felt, so you talk about pushing back and creating those boundaries and drawing that line for yourself. Has there been a moment where you maybe got nervous that you weren't going to be able to hold that line or you were too overwhelmed with 700 tools coming at you and people telling you to test this and test this and test this and test this? Has there been a moment where you just felt like it was kind of too much, too big, too many things?
Yeah, definitely. I think when this kind of became an initiative here, I am always a little bit slower to adopt. So I kind of I wait until I have a moment I do need it. And sometimes that does bite me, you know, in the butt a little bit. Everyone else knows exactly how to use it. I'm coming in, I'm like, I already have a project, I already have a due date, and now I'm trying to figure out how to use this tool. But I'm not a person that works well in this is not the right word because I concept all the time, but like in the conceptual, I'm not great at making an ad that's not a real ad with an end destination. I'm not good at sketching. I want to just get to the thing I actually have to make. I would rather design a whole video than storyboard, which I know is weird and a lot of extra work and why other people don't want to do that thing. But I just like I can't personally go into a tool with like no idea what I want to create and like see if it's a good fit for me or not. So, definitely always a little slower and thus a little intimidated when I get like a whole list of tools I maybe should be using and implementing. But like I said, like experimenting with them, ruling out the ones that don't work for me and my process personally to like cull the herd a little bit, has definitely made that a lot uh, more useful to me because then I know that the tools I'm using I actually want to use and are helping.
Yeah, that's really, I appreciate you sharing that because it's a vulnerable thing to share. And I think a lot of people, probably a lot more people will relate to it than either end of the spectrum. So what has all of this whole journey that is, of course, only getting started, and we are at the mid point of the journey. We're at the mid journey if you are, yeah.
Oh, I didn't get where you were going, but
I
I
know,
do
I had to over
appreciate
explain
it.
it.
I was like,
And this is
awesome.
coming from the person that hates
I
puns.
know I do hate puns, but when they're there, they're there. So in this journey, it's only going to keep changing and creating more options, more chaos. for you as a designer. What have you learned about yourself that you're really proud of through this? And what are you using to keep pushing you forward?
Great question.
You got to say something nice about yourself. We make everyone say something nice about themselves at the end of this.
I think more so just in this conversation, I've realized how important it is to me to make unique content that I'm proud of. So I do think that it's helping me do that. And honestly, whenever I have the opportunity to use it, I'm like way more proud of that work from like a conceptual standpoint than maybe the thing I make all the time, just going into like Adobe Stock and picking a photo of someone on a computer. Like that's maybe not as creatively satisfying to me as like being responsible for creating it from the ground up, which is what's happening when I'm like cat worlds take over with like making a whole like world that didn't exist before.
So important to remind ourselves that because something is available, it doesn't need to be used. It doesn't need to be a guiding light for us to like have to do this one way or the other. I think there's a lot of reflection I can take back from this conversation too on why am I doing some things the way I'm doing and what is the process behind it? Like, what is my driver? Even in the marketing lens, like, how do I want to action tools, how do I think that they enable me or slow me down? And that reflection, I think, is just important for anybody to kind of take away from this discussion is like, what is the benefit to you and your future and growth? So I like it.
Yeah, like tools are the whole definition of a tool is something that makes your life easier. So
Mm-hmm.
it should make your life easier and not add a bunch of distress or complications.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the discussion here. I always like to close these out, or we like to close it out with like one or two questions, just to kind of get your perspective. And for me, this comes from a non-AI perspective. But if you think about the kind of the shift, and we talk about this a lot from the marketing lens, but like in the creative world, what do you expect is coming next? And how do you think we or new designers or new creatives should think about it and be ready? I mean, more content is everywhere. Saturation is everywhere. We all feel like we're doing the same thing. So what's your thoughts, or how do you feel that's the direction we're going?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that we'll probably see like an upswing in products that like lack quality because everyone feels like they can do this job because of AI and they might get close, but like you can tell when AI made something or like there's Reddit threads, like AI or not, of people like wanting to confirm, wanting to check before they give money to an artist and things like that. So I think there'll be a natural influx of everyone experimenting and thinking that they can do it for themselves. And then I think because of that, I'm guessing here, but maybe a movement for stuff that is very obviously handmade, created custom. I think that's probably going to be a design trend of as now the whole market gets saturated with we're using AI, the differentiator becomes we're not.
Mm-hmm. Like that. Etsy's going to pop off for B2B soon.
Etsy already has really just become like a drop ship website. And I feel like that's kind of the perfect example of what I'm talking about, right? Like it started as this handmade thing. People saw opportunity to list there, and now you really have to like scour that for something that is handmade and not from AliExpress.
Yeah.
And I think just the authenticity too from that, like owning the fact that maybe this piece of a design was created in AI and the design is put together by a graphic designer versus this whole piece was made by AI, but we're not going to say it. Or like the
Yeah.
just the honesty behind how teams are using these tools.
And I do appreciate a lot of the stock photos and things like that are creating their own AI within their database as well. And those are very clearly marked, which is good because if I can find kind of a real person doing exactly what I want, I'm always going to pick that over AI because AI is not perfect. I don't want to spend time editing out a eighth finger, like there's always nuances, and I think you can still sort of tell. So at least personally, like I prefer them labeling it. And if I'm just looking for something that's super basic, I'll filter the AI generated images out and move forward with what's always worked.
Smart.
Amazing. Yeah. Monica, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. We're so grateful for your time and insights, and we hope that everyone listening will hold on to their unique perspective, find time for exploration, and read up on some dinosaurs. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.